and I'll give you a little update on what we're going to talk about today. So a lot of my clients many of you are on this call, like saying, hey, the market's moving a little bit. There's definitely some changes in the market. So I first wanted to kind of talk about, just mastermind for a little bit about what you guys are seeing as far as what are some of the changes in the market. So anybody seeing anything out there that's a little different than maybe the last 60 to 90 days? Anybody seeing anything? You can unmute and share your thoughts on that. You guys
can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you,
Okay.
Linda.
I wasn't sure I have a different microphone. I have noticed that things that you expect like 25 offers on are getting like 8 to 10 offers.
Correct.
So we're seeing it, and things are not going quite as quickly as they used to. I'm seeing a few price reductions, but I think that might have been seller greed, not so much agent pricing. So it seems to me that maybe the buyer side is slowing down a little bit.
Yeah, we're definitely hearing all those things. So houses are staying on the market longer. Price reductions, we're seeing more of them. Showings have gone down considerably. We're not having that same frenzy like we used to. And prices, and what I always say, the ingredients of the offer, because it's not just price and an offer, like all the things, like home inspections are coming back, regular contingencies are coming back. You've even got clients getting some closing costs paid for again. So some of the things that 3 to 6 months of we had to basically give everything away on the buyer side of things is coming back. So that's the reason why I wanted to kind of have this discussion on some strategies on what we can kind of do to control what we can't control, control the market. So one of the first thing I wanted to do is I want to actually go in and show you some facts about what's happening within the MLS. So I'm going to share screen and we're going to go over some market data because I think one of the things that I've been through 2 cycles of a real estate market. Many of you on this call have been through more than that, right? But it's whenever there's a movement in the market, you have to lead with facts. You can't lead with generic answers. I always challenge any one of you that, like, when they say, how's the market doing? You saying, oh, it's busy, or it's crazy, or that's not a response. That needs to be much more educated. You need to lead with facts, not almost opinions. So I'm going to give you some facts. So if you want to take some notes or screenshots and things, we're literally pulling it directly from our local MLS, but it's very telling about what the market's doing. And so everything that we're kind of talking about today, where's this? Let me go and grab MLS. So if you guys have never used this little area, this is super easy because it's already in MLS. I pull up market stats, which pulls all of the data, and it looks like this. So one of the things that I modified on this is that I don't like this stupid like line thing. I don't even know what that means other than a roller coaster. So I changed that to a bar graph. I also change it from, it defaults to all construction. I change it to resale because I definitely think there's different strategies inside new construction versus resale. And then I'm looking at year to date is what I want to look at. And I want to see 3-year trends. I don't want to just see last year, right? Because last year was pandemic, even 2020 was pandemic. Like, we're looking at some skewed data just based on how things are. So first thing I'm going to do is just go straight down the bottom because I want you to lead with some facts about how the market is. This is all of MLS, all of resale. So it's every area. If you wanted to go back in, we're not going to do that today based on time. You can do it by zip code. You can do it by MLS area number. You can do it by county. You can do it by subdivision. So if you are farming a neighborhood or you only concentrate on the city or Chesterfield, go back in doing exactly what I'm doing today and get your facts. And then I highly encourage this to be recreated in graphics for social media. And we'll talk about even doing some videos, like social media videos and things like that. So Let me minimize you guys so I can see the full screen. So first thing, sales price. I use average versus median. It defaults to median, so I do average sales price. So we all know prices are higher, and this is year to date. So this exact same snapshot, so this is through May. June will come out in probably another week. So, you know, we'll have another month's worth of data, but you see that it's up 13%. So the average sales price of the house in Richmond is $376. So one of the things that I would coach you to is, if you're a real estate agent, what is your average sales price? You need to know that. And if it's below the average, because an average is that, you know, the low and the high blended together, right? So if yours is lower than 376, is that an opportunity for you to grow on, because you're working just as hard? But if we're based it on commission dollars, 376 commissions obviously higher than, let's say, 2 years ago at 289, right? This is a great screen to be able to show your sellers that the same house 2 years ago, the exact same house was worth 289, and now it's worth 376. So doing some math for them to show that equity gain is huge to do that. Okay. New listings. This is literally what it means. It means how many listings as of so far at the end of the year. We had 9,123 as of the end of May. So we're down a little bit. But I think it's interesting that we have been talking the last 2 years, we have low inventory. That is not actually correct. We actually have the same amount of inventory. If you look at the year before, 9,006, this is 9,009 within this same time period. We really had the same amount of inventory, really. Actually, we had a little bit more inventory last year. Just the demand went up, right? The buyers came out of the woodwork, out of their parents' basements. They decided to stop renting, and they went into the market and said, hey, I want to go buy a house, right? So I think changing the language that it's not a low inventory, it's a high demand market. And when we start to see the movement of the market, which I'll go into some closed transactions, you'll see it leveling out. And you know, because there's buyer fatigue, but it's not because of low inventory, it's because of high demand. It's kind of economics there. So and then pending say
question.
Sure.
Ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
Have you done anything that's prior to 2020, which was COVID?
Yeah, so you can go back.
I'm
can
curious if you had looked, if there was a big drop from 2019 to 2020.
I have on a different software. This one only goes back 3 years. But really what it'll kind of tell you the story with pending and close. So let me get through this.
I was wondering if there was any hope when COVID totally disappears.
I think my prediction is this is the new normal. Like, I think COVID is obviously a symptom of some of this, but it was going to happen anyway, unfortunately. But so let me just show you this. Like, so pending transactions. So remember, this is like they haven't closed yet, right? So if you're in real estate, you know, we have 45 to 60 day, sometimes not, whatever the amount of time. Again, this is resale, so it's not new construction. So it's probably a typical like 30 to 45 day close. Our pendings are down by 8% year to date. So it's starting to show. So this time last year, we were almost at 9,000 units that was pending as of the end of May. And as of the end of May this year, we were short, what is that, almost 800 units, right? So that's the first. I always say that when you're talking about real estate, it's obviously it's the current, the past, and the future. This is the future. Like, this stuff's going to close out. There's going to be fallout just because not all transactions survive, right? But if you're already seeing it as an 8% decline and they haven't even made it to the closing table yet, you're starting to see this fluctuation. But if you look at 2020, that's pretty much where we were. So you see this spike happen last year because we were coming out of the pandemic, right? And there's the frenzy to buy. That's when we've seen some crazy offers. Basically, you couldn't have any contingency. You're starting to see it level back out. So the language that I encourage is, we're not in a shift, we're not in a pivot, we're in a leveling out phase. And you can see, and this trend will continue with all these other tabs. that it's just leveling itself back out, which honestly, you need that. The market needs to shrink back down. Obviously, because we have just natural inflation that's connected to real estate, with just the cost of living. And then the closed sales also down. Remember, this is 60 days prior. So in March, this happened, right? So in March, we started to see it started to slow down. So now we're at the end of May because they closed within that 60-day cycle, and you're starting to see it's leveling out again. It's 6,900 units, 7,164. So you're starting to see, you could see literally back in March that actually trend was already starting to happen. So it's interesting. A lot of people that I coach are like, oh, it just happened like this month. No, it actually happened 3 months ago. We just either weren't paying attention or we were still riding the transactions that we had previously. So this is not like you woke up today and was like, oh, wow, there's a change in the market. I think people feel that way. I see a lot of people panicking with showings and different things. But you can see that this cycle was actually already in the works 60 to 90 days prior. Average days on market, again, I use average versus median. It was crazy. Yeah, year to date. So it's 14. This was pandemic. So we're not that much different than before. Month supply, again, it's a demand problem. So we don't actually, they're literally like eating up all the inventory as we go through. But the last thing that I wanted to show you is the dollar volume. Remember, this is because they increased in sales price. So if you go back to sales price, that's because the same number of houses are selling, but they're selling at 376 versus 289. So when you look at that dollar volume closed, yes, it looks like a 4% increase, but that's a false inflated number because the actual house price is. So the reason why I want to go through this is because it's really important that you go back in this, maybe grab some of this data and tell the story accurately. We're going to talk about that. I'll share my presentation screen in a second, but there's some strategies I want you guys to think about going into the next 3 to 6 months of the market. And the first strategy really is to know the facts. Go in here and really look at it. And I'm not going to go through this whole presentation again for new construction, but I'm going to flip and I'll show you real quick. Resale, the average is 376. If I do new construction, the average is 353, right? So it's important. You could use that as a benefit if you have a resale listing, right? So that's resale. And then price per square foot, which I'm never a fan of using generically, but the average for resale is 191, but then the average for new construction is 202. So to be honest with you, why would you not buy new construction? If the price per square foot's almost the same, 202 versus 191, wouldn't I buy a new car versus a used car if it's the same price per piece, right? Price per square foot, and I can pick out the granite, pick out all the stuff. So you're going to see new construction is going to continue. We have to have new construction going through. So, and then the last thing I wanted to show you, and then I'll hop to some strategies, is the showings per pending. I think this is interesting because, again, resale, the average showings based on how many pending. So if you're at 20 showings last year at this time of year, 19.5, and you're still at like 19, still basically at 20. So if you have listings that don't have 20 showings and they haven't gone under contract, so you maybe only have 4 or 5 showings right now, and you've been on the market for a couple weeks, that's a problem. That's not a trend that's following what the local average is. So that's where strategically you need to come back to your seller and say, hey, the average deal, the average pending transaction happens after the 20th showing. We have only had 10, and we're not even really having a lot of traction on there. We either need to look at the condition, we need to look at the pricing, or a different marketing strategy because we're not getting the traction that we should. So I think it's really important that we'll talk about that as a strategy is when you're communicating with your sellers and they're stalling a little bit as far as price reductions. Linda, you made a good point. Like we're seeing some things. Oh, I wanted to show you that. because you guys know when you log in to MLS, right? Is you see this. This is this snapshot every single day, right? So just in the last 24 hours, there's 29 price decreases. If you look at the last 7-day average, look, 164 price decrease. New listing is 462, but 598 of them went under contract. This bar graph alone is here's the inventory and here's the demand is the pending part, right? And then the sold is what's gobbled up. So I just want you guys to really go into the season of knowing this data, because it really makes an impact when you're trying to have a logical conversation with someone that might be fear driven or kind of emotional, right? So the second thing I wanted to I'm going to dive into is really the strategies as a coach that I'm going through. Look at my little chickens over here. So I wanted you guys to see what this is. Before I go into this, what's your guys' opinion about what you just saw, the data? Is that what you were feeling? Is any of that surprise you? Is anybody surprised by that data at all? Is that what you guys are feeling? Like that it's leveling out? Do you see that the pendings even started in March? We're starting to decrease, that 8% decrease. So that's March, April, May, June. So we've had 4 months. 1 month is never a trend, but when you see 3 to 4 months of a consistent leveling out, you're starting to see that the market is exactly that. If it's just spiking or dropping 1 month, then I would say, hey, it's just a blip in the radar. It's seasonality. It's whatever it is. But when you're starting to see 4-month trends, 6-month trends where they're starting to level, I think that's cause for us to talk about it. Okay. All right. So the one thing is I wanted to talk about, this is the cycle of change. It actually comes from a book that I love. And I actually put this in when I do group coaching for some folks, we talk about this, and some of you guys are in group coaching, and pretty much whenever there's a change in your life, specifically in real estate cycles, we go through this. And so it's interesting. There's stage 1 is uninformed optimism, then it goes informed pessimism, valley of despair, informed optimism, and then success. So where do you think the market is in the stage of the cycle of this change? We've been going through change now for almost 5 months, even though people think it's sooner, it's happened more recent. Where do you think most consumers are? Consumers, not realtors. I'll ask realtor. Where do you think the consumer is when they're seeing the changes in the market? Uninformed, informed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Which one do you think they're in? Any opinion? So one of the things that we're seeing that the consumer is, and this, especially they were in this valley of despair for so long. They were frustrated because they weren't getting a house. And then now they're like actually going in reverse. So they're informed. So they know what the market is. They think they do. They know they have what they have to do is pay extra money. They have to get rid of some contingencies to get at least a seat at the table to get offers accepted. So we're seeing they're being informed, but then they're being very pessimistic. They're being very negative. They're grumpy. So this is more the buyer side of things. Well, I don't know. It's actually the seller too. There's a little bit of entitlement on the seller still. Like, oh, I wanted 70,000 over asking, and now I'm only getting 20,000 over asking. So now there's this. They think they're informed because they know what the market has been the last 6 to 8 months, and then now it's changed, and then they don't like that. That's that pessimistic side. So the reason why I bring this up is that any cycle of change, you're in one of these buckets, and a lot of times it doesn't go in chronological order, stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So I want you to think about that when you're going into conversations with your clients, because they're somewhere in this cycle. And if they're optimistic, but they have no clue what they're doing and they don't have the evidence behind it, that's just as dangerous as informed pessimism, because they both have that false sense of entitlement there, right? So what I wanted to give you guys some strategies on how to navigate this market. And so one of the things that was glaring at me was like literally our logo. And so we've always believed that at the bottom of our logo, we put this kind of our mantra is that mindset, action, and success. Those are connected. So it's actually, to me, is the silver bullet to what we're navigating right now. And so the first one I want you to really think about is truly the mindset of where you're at. You know, you are the local expert. You need to be diving into that data consistently. It's changing every week. I look at that stuff every single week. And you guys are the ones that are the boots on the ground constantly in the market. So you can feel it, like you see the changes happening. But I think being the local expert is actually putting some data to it. So when you're at a restaurant, at the grocery store, you can communicate actually real facts. And then what we were talking about, the clients and the media are behind by at least 3 months. So we got to get out in front of it. So the beautiful thing about real estate, I've always loved, is that your sphere of influence, the people that you hang out with, listen to you. They trust you, they like you, and you and them are like advocates in the local market. So they may hear national news or listen to something on Zillow or on the internet. But if you say something that's different, that's a little bit more articulate and a little bit more accurate, they're actually going to listen to you more more quickly. So I really do think, and I know realtors, their number one fear is getting behind a camera. They hate live videos, but if you could get on social media, and you could print off what that data we were just talking about and talk through it. 3 to 5 minute video that says, is the sky falling? Is there a bubble? Is there what is that? So we have to face these fears with facts. So I would say your first strategy is, what's your mindset connected to telling the real story? Are you a sheep and you're just kind of following the herd of like, oh my God, it is crazy. The market's shifting, right? Or are you actually out in front? So I think one of the first thing I want you to do is take a challenge is, could you get on social media and communicate what you're really feeling and what you're seeing? Also, one of the things, I'm a big what you put in your brain. So I'm a big fan of going back to what are you listening to, what are you reading, and who you're surrounding yourself with, right? So we have a great realtor community, but some of y'all, maybe not on this call, I'm not hanging out with you because negative, the sky is falling mentality is not healthy for us, right? So make sure, I don't know if you guys can see this. This is my newest little book that I love. This is a new book by Mel Robbins. There's it. It's called the High Five Habit. It's completely a new take on habits, but it's really more about mindset. To be honest with you, I think it's deceiving because it says habits on here, but that might be a good audible for you to start to listen to, or if you're like me and want to read it, highlight, take notes, do that. But one of the things I want you to do is, what are you listening to? Who are you hanging out with? Because when changes happen, 2 things either are going to occur. It's either you're going to adopt a mentality of a scarcity, right, or abundance. There's only going to be 2 ways that your brain goes through. It's fight or flight, and also then there's freeze, right? And then care and candor. So many of you have had people in your pipeline, clients in your pipeline for a while, buyers in your pipeline, sellers in your pipeline. You haven't written contracts, or if you have, you haven't gotten them done yet, right? And you've told them advice, like sellers, you told them 6 months ago, hey, we could price it at this. We could do different things. And unfortunately, that advice no longer works. So make sure you're having what we call care and candor conversations that says, yeah, I met you in January and we said this is what the market is, but the market has moved. So don't go into a relationship with different circumstances without communicating that. So I'm seeing a lot of people listing properties and I'm like, how'd you come up with that price? And why are we not doing anything about the condition? They're like, oh, well, when I told them the market was selling so fast, we didn't really have to do much about the condition. Well, the market's, again, it's leveling out. People are starting to get a little pickier on the way things look versus before. You saw that huge spike in inventory or in demand last year. They basically, if it was duct tape and bubble gum, they bought a house, So I want to make sure another strategy is it's connected to mindset is you got to be confident enough to go into those conversations that you've had already and update them and say, hey, I know you think probably I'm crazy, but what I said 3 months ago is no longer valid. It's not actually current with what the market, because it's constantly moving. So I want you to really build some confidence in that you need to control that narrative a lot more than the past. Okay. So the last thing, or the next one, is what we call action, right? Is that right? Yeah. So everybody at the Freedom Companies, we have a tool we call the GPS. It's basically a plan that we build out for every 12 weeks. So the beautiful thing is it's June, right? June 7th. So you got plenty. So building out a plan for June, July, and August. So it doesn't require a fancy form. You could do this on a notebook piece of paper or a dry erase board. Think about your business, about what is your one goal for the next 3 months or 12 weeks, right? It's essentially the same thing, right? Most, if you're in the transaction world, like real estate world, it's going to be how many houses do you want to close, right? So I want to sell 10 houses in the next 12 weeks, right? If you're a vendor, if you're somebody that's still transactional based or relationship based, put a number to that. So the goal needs to be pretty solid of a number. And then 3 priorities. Again, you can do this on a piece of paper. What are the 3 things that I can focus on that's going to lead me to the goal? And then underneath the priorities is 4 strategies. So an example, let's say one of my priorities is I'm going to be better at communicating the market information on social media. Okay. So let's say I'm going to sell 5 houses in the next three months. And one of my priorities is I'm going to be much more intentional about being on social media, communicating this leveling out market. And so that's the priority. And then the strategy is, strategy 1 could be once a week going on Facebook Live. Strategy 2 could be creating some static Canva, like solid images based on MLS data, so I can communicate that on a post once a week as well. Third thing could be is, hey, I want to go to a coffee once a week with my past clients to educate them on what the market's doing. And then maybe strategy 4 is connecting with my vendor partners and seeing, number 1, how they're doing and how their business is going, and how we can help each other gain more referrals, right? So those are 4 strategies. So it's called a 1-3-4. 1 goal, 3 priorities, and 4 strategies. So going into action, you have to have a plan. And one of the things that I've done is that when I'm kind of frazzled, is I just go in a certain direction. I did a social media post the other day of me going to the grocery store. I had no plan. I had a very small list, and I end up with a whole shopping cart full of food, right? A GPS is really guiding you to slow yourself down and say, what are 3 things I can control? What are 3 priorities that I know if I focus on over the next 12 weeks, I can actually get some type of accomplished goal out of it? Okay. So part of the action strategy is building a plan. Simple. Use a piece of paper. I mean, we do have forms here, but it doesn't have to be sexy. It could be just literally a piece of paper. Another action is that we need to make sure we're intentional going into these next 60 days. Real estate mode is real, but real estate burnout is real, and summer fever is real. So a lot of realtors are going to take a little bit of a break in June and July. My recommendation, based on the trends that you just saw leveling out, if you don't work consistently in June and July, your fall/winter is not going to be great. And I don't wish that upon anyone, but you're seeing it leveling out. There's going to be a level of fear that's connected to that, and certain buyers or sellers are just going to drop out of the market. So when you look at your pipeline today and you're like, oh, I got 10 buyers that are in my pipeline, 3 or 4 of those could fall out just because of fear, because they're not sure what the market's doing, or they're getting their news online rather than getting it from you, right? So I definitely think we need to be intentional about lead generation. So we have a system here at the Freedom Companies. We call it the Core 5. So it's 5 things you do every day, and they got to be simple things that you can do that take you about 20-30 minutes at the most to get done, right? So I'll give you an example of what my Core 5 is. So I do 5 text messages every morning to people in my phone, checking in on them, seeing how their day is going. leads to conversation about real estate or coaching, right? So 5 text messages is what I do every morning. I do 5 private messages through Facebook or Instagram, different people, not the same 5 that I text. I do 5 handwritten notes. I literally check in on Facebook, I stalk y'all and see what you guys are doing and write a cool handwritten note like, hey, I saw you went to Florida, or hey, I saw you got a new puppy, right? Hope things are going well. But so I do 5 handwritten notes a day. And then I'll do 5 conversations a day. I'm literally calling to physically talk to 5 people that again are different. And then the last 5 is I send 5 emails a day. So I strategically go through and I customize an email that makes that. The reason why I bring this example up is that you need to have high impact intentional lead gen. So something like a core 5 that we've built out, it comes from a book called Atomic Habits. It's a stacking effect. So what we mean by that is I do 5, 5, 5, 5. I do 5 of those same things. Really starting next week, I'm going to increase that. So instead of 5 text messages, starting on my next week, which technically starts on Sunday, I'm actually going to do 8. So I'm going to change from 5 text messages a day to 8 text messages a day, and change from 5 direct messages to 8. I'm increasing that stack. So the core 5 concept comes from, like, think about like working out, like weight training, right? If you've never worked out before, putting 250 pounds on the weight bench, you can't lift it. But if you start out with 10 pounds, see how that feels, then you stack another set of weights on. Eventually your habits or your muscle, because habit is basically like a muscle, you then can lift a lot more than you used to, right? So my challenge to you guys going into June and July is really make sure, is make sure that you're doing some core 5 activities. That's huge for what we're going through the next 60 to 90 days, right? Spring cleaning, summer cleaning, make sure you guys are getting organized now. So I know that you all have been in this tailspin of busy, writing multiple offers. So maybe your house or your office is not in order. So one of the things that I see consistently is when I see someone overwhelmed or just feeling like they're just in a fog, is getting organized. Clean off the desk, start over, reorganize, get yourself kind of set up, and that I think is a big deal. So another strategy I want you to go into the next 2 to 3 weeks, like, what do I need to do to just get myself back to a even baseline of literally being organized? Because I know you guys have been running in your cars and writing multiple offers. So now is the time to get back to that. Okay. All right. So a few more and then we'll hop off, because you guys know, I know you have a lot to do in your productive day. So part of the action still is do your research before writing offers. I'm seeing a lot of offers. So I work on both sides, obviously with you guys. I see listing agents coming to me and saying, these offers are like crazy high for no reason, right? And they're not going to tell you that. So make sure the market that you were writing offers again 60 days ago is not the market we're in now. So if you look at a house that's listed at 350, you maybe don't need to go to 400. You don't maybe need to write an offer 50,000 over, right? You might be able to get a home inspection, right? So one of the things I would say is before you say it out loud to your client, do the research. So show the house and tell them, hey, the market's moving in a different direction. It's evening out. Before I go and tell you what we're going to write the offer on, I'm going to actually go back and do some more research, because literally there could be a couple closed transactions that just happened the last 2 weeks that's going to change the way we write our offers, right? And then also it's getting back in communication with the daggone listing agent, right? They're starting to now actually call you back versus before, lucky if you ever got them to answer the phone, right? Because they were just so overwhelmed. But we need to make sure you're watching the market every day. I'm seeing offers that honestly, it's not a win-win for both people. So I think we need to make sure, lead with facts, make sure you're doing that research ahead of time, because some of the advice you were giving in April and May is not going to be the same advice that I would recommend you guys doing in June and July, right? All right, and the last piece is success. We talk about this a lot at the Freedom Companies, is that you got to just keep going. Things in motion stay in motion. You just got to start. Progress over perfection. I probably say that every day. But give yourself some grace. So when the market moves, you got to move with the market, and you're going to move faster than the consumer. And you're going to probably move faster than some of the real estate agents that are in your brokerage, even because you're a top producer. You're constantly looking at the market. You're coming to trainings like this. You're doing things that are constantly moving the needle to educate yourself. And I think give yourself some grace there and make sure you just stay in action. And you've all seen this before. I would say success shows up what people see. If you go back to that original slide when I was talking about the way that the leveling out happened, like literally 4 months ago, it's the same thing with success. You probably have been working the last almost 6 months in your business, and you have this level of success right now. And people think it just magically popped up, right? No, you've been consistent. You've been doing all the habits. You've been doing all the hard work. So I want you to just truly remember that it's connected to your activities. And then I always say success is a stacking effect. So the last thing I want you to think about is what habits do you need to stack, right? So we talked about the core 5. We talked about your GPS, updating that so you kind of have a 12-week roadmap of what to do. And then we also talked about that mindset. What are you really putting out there, I believe, is what you attract. So I want you to celebrate your wins, go through that as we go through. So the last thing, what time are we at? All right, we got 10 more minutes. But the measure of intelligence is the ability to change. So when I'm looking at this data and I'm seeing it changing, resale, pendings, right? So I'm seeing it leveling out just in that cycle, right? This is the rolling 3 months. This is the same information, but last month. So this is February, March, no, April. Yeah, March, April, May, right? So you're seeing that it had already leveled out 4 months ago, 3 months ago. And this is the rolling 6 month. It's been leveling out for a while. This was the crazy market. This was right off the heels of COVID. But I don't think, when Linda, you asked that first question, like, I don't think COVID, just because, quote, COVID's going away, which it's not, but COVID has become a new normal for us. It's now created this like stamp in the ground that's not going to change. I think these numbers are not showing that we're going down in any way. It's just showing that we're leveling out. So I want you to go into the strategies that we talked about as far as mindset, action, and success. You got to have all 3 of those connected together. I love mindset, but you can't just think the market's great and think that the market's going to be great for the next 6 months. You got to go into action and actually see what's going on. And then you have to be consistent enough to then wait for the success to continue to build that momentum, right? So is there anything that you guys, any strategies that you guys are using in your kind of toolbox to navigate the market right now that we don't know about? Like, is there anything you're doing in offers that is tending to work? Is there anything that anybody's willing to share about that? Is there anything that you guys are doing in your offers? Are you guys writing offers with home inspections again? Is that a trend that you're seeing again? Because we're seeing that on our piece of the puzzle. Is anybody? Can I call anybody out? Ron, are you seeing anything different, or are you seeing any different in writing your offers, or is it the same? Waive all contingencies. I don't know if you can hear me. One of the things I'm definitely seeing is that like home warranties are coming back. I know there's a stager on here, and you're on here. Like people are getting back to somewhat of that normal stuff they need to be doing. Staging. Hopefully you're getting busy again. I don't know if you had a little lull there, but I had a lot of people that honestly, they weren't staging, they weren't having professional photographers, they weren't doing home inspections. And I think, unfortunately, that's not great. I think it's part of our value add to our sellers and buyers to have all those resources. So And what are you seeing in the vendor side of things?
I just wanted to tell you thank you, because all this information was kind of what I was feeling. And it helps me to know how to speak to sellers now, because sellers, I think when I did number one on your thing, I think sellers are uninformed. I think they think that they're still going to get 20,000 over the market and just
Right.
throw it out there. And this really helps me be more educated about what I've kind of been feeling like. We need to have some really serious conversations about presenting this house well. We can't just throw it out there, and really helping people to understand it has now leveled off, and you're going to have to do some work to get this house, even to get a list price offer.
Yeah. And I think that's the problem, is they're like 3 to 6 months behind. So if you don't either have a strong enough agent, or you don't have a vendor partner like you that's strong enough to be able to kind of put your neck out and be like, you're sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but like the market is leveled off now. So you're going to have to do some basic things to get your house in condition. 6 months ago, you probably didn't need this. You maybe could have gotten away with not painting or whatever. You know, it was literally, I said, for duct tape and bubble gum held a lot of these houses together, right? So now the market's leveling out. The buyers are not dumb. They're going in houses. They see them every day. It's interesting. The sellers are trying to control the narrative of what real estate is, but the buyers are the ones that actually are in all the houses every day. The seller doesn't go into any houses. They're in their own house. But they don't go into 25 houses a week like most buyers do. So it's funny who runs the show. Is they think it's the seller, but it's really starting to shift to be a buyer. So I just think I wanted you guys to know the facts. I appreciate Ann for piping in with some good feedback, because I think we've got to be like care and candor. We've got to show them the data. So I think doing screenshots, showing them like this stuff is not new. And I think I literally hear every day, oh, and May was a rough month. No, it's the same. It was the same. It was the same as it was in February. You just didn't feel it yet. It was like a delayed hangover. It's like we are already feeling it, and then the data starts to show it. If you look at every single one of the points, pending as future is down, close is down. I think those all show that. And then again, the pending to showing, I think is so interesting. Like if you're not getting 20 showings, then something's wrong. So if you have a stall in the market, it's a communicating to your seller like, hey, the average is 20 showings. We're supposed to get an offer. We haven't even had 20 showings. I had literally one client that they got 4 showings and they had 2 offers. And the seller was like, oh, I want to just wait out for more showings and more offers. No, you need to take one of these offers, because you haven't had 20 showings and it's been almost 2 weeks. You've only had 4. So take one of these offers. These are all decent offers. We can work them and, negotiate our way through, but waiting for more showings isn't the answer. So Linda, do you have anything to add? I saw you unmuted, and then we'll connect with that. But so it's just all very interesting. I think the only trend that hasn't changed, if you notice the numbers, is the price hasn't changed. I mean, the sales prices are going up. That's the last indicator to me that the market is truly at what we call a stable leveling out market. So when I see pendings, I see closed, I see all of that negative, but I still see a higher percentage. That's going to be when we start to see prices decrease. That's when we're going to start to see that final transition. And I think in the fall, and NAR, I do a lot of research for the National Association. They're predicting significant price changes in the end of fourth quarter. So what you're going to see is these sellers aren't going to get as much as they think. And the trend is going to be that they're it's not going to be like apocalypse, like recession numbers. Like they're not going to go from 371 to 289. It's not going to go back down that far, but it may not. Right now we're at a 12% increase in sales price year over year to date, let me do year to date. Yeah, it didn't change that much. So year to date, we trended from the previous year 14%, we're up 13%. This is the last, in my opinion, the last domino that has to fall, meaning that prices have to start to slightly go down for us all to see this leveling out to be equitable for everybody. You know, as much as we want our sellers to get the highest top dollar, you also need to have affordability index. You need to make sure your buyers can afford what they're doing, you know, and that affects loan prices and appraisals and all that. So that's the only indicator on this analysis that I see that we haven't seen this drop. When we start to see the sales price go down a little bit, then I think we're going to see panic. The sellers are going to go, oh my God, the houses are going down. They're not. They're going to level back. It's going to be just like this. Eventually, you're going to see it'll look very much like this. It'll have that leveling out effect. And we don't need it to drop dramatically, but you know, the average sales price was, I mean, historically is like 3 to 6%. We're in double digits. Anything, we have high inflation. We're like really pushing it on at least in local Richmond. We don't want to see anything higher than like 8 to 9%. These 14 to 13% swings. Obviously, the seller loves it because they're building a lot of equity, but it's not sustainable in a market that we're in. So, okay. Well, I will send this recording out to everybody. So if you guys want to go back through it, take some notes, do some screenshots, you can do. I also want you to, if you know of a realtor that maybe is in that scarcity mindset, oh my gosh, what's happening in the market, maybe need strategies, forward this video to them. Maybe that would be a way to kind of rally the troops in your brokerage to say, hey, this is some of the facts that's going on. Here's some strategies to do that. So be happy to share this video if you think it will help somebody. All right. Well, thanks for you guys' time, and happy Tuesday. And we'll see each other soon. Okay. All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Drew. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew.
Absolutely. See you guys later. Okay.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.